Today is January the 16th and I am starting my sweet pea, so I thought I would show you how to start those because they are a little different than the other seed varieties that I start. I start those in something called a root trainer, which is this contraption right here. The main difference being there is a lot more space for the roots to grow than in the other trays that I use. So you can see they're very deep and they're very used. I bought these 5 years ago probably, and they're still hanging in. I have lost 1 or 2 sets of these, so I do need to replace those, but these come in clamshell cells. So they're meant to come apart really easy so that you don't disturb the root system when you plant them out in the spring. So I'm starting these today, January 16th, and I will plant them out in March. Now, alongside the sweet pea that I'm starting indoors today, I will plant some directly into the soil on the 1st of February. I did this last year, and I felt like comparatively they were about the same, but if I can eliminate having to start them inside and care for them and then having to transplant them out, I would rather do that. So I did notice that as far as germination comparisons go, I have about 95% germination rate in the seed room down here, and outside it's more like a 75%. So I think what I'm going to do is plant 2 seeds per spot out in the soil February 1st and see how that goes. And if that works and they all germinate, I get 1 in every spot at least, that's how I'm gonna do it for the rest of my life, because it eliminates having to water because you get the rain from outside. It eliminates having to transplant out, which is kind of a big headache, especially with these sweet pea because they are vining, and when they grow indoors in these trays, they all kind of wrap around each other and they're hard to separate. And the other thing that is more beneficial with starting them outside is that they're a little bit tougher. The stems that come up indoors are a little bit thin and weak, and it's okay because you plant them out, and what usually happens to me is they die back, but then they shoot up a stronger system. So I would rather just skip all that and go straight to growing the strong plant. So that's my plan for this year. I'm growing so many different varieties of sweet pea. You'll find in the sweet pea world that there are many that can substitute one another. They're very close in color. So I'm growing a couple new ones and some old ones that I love. Molly Realstone is a new one for me, and if I have pictures, I'll put it up. Naomi Nazareth is one that I've grown in the past along with Charlie's Angel. They're very similar. I'm still trying to decide which I prefer, so I am growing both of those this year. But they're one of my all-time favorites. I will never not grow Naomi Nazareth or Charlie's Angel. Clotted Cream is one that I grew last year that I'm growing again this year. I was totally amazed by the long stems. I usually don't get very long stems, and these stems were like 16 inches. It was incredible. Shell Pink is new for me. Juliet, also new. Winter Sunshine Lavender, new. Lynn Fiona and Oban Bay, both of those are new. Castle Wellen is not new for me. I've grown that before. I really love that one. And then I've got 2 from Johnny's. One is called Bix and one is called High Scent. And I actually have both of those in a greater volume than I do the rest. So those will probably be the ones that I direct seed outside. And then I've got Queen of Hearts. It's questionable because I bought it off of Etsy. We will see. I couldn't find Queen of Hearts anywhere else, or it was sold out. So Queen of Hearts is one of my all-time favorites, and last year I attempted to grow it, and it was also from Etsy, and it turned out to be not what it said it was. So I'm trying it again this year. Hopefully someone reputable will hear me and start carrying Queen of Hearts so I can buy it on their site. And then I think that's it. I'm gonna explain seed starting just a little bit with sweet pea because it's a little different than everything else that I grow. So as I said, I use these root trainers, and because they are the way that they are, I pre-moisten my seedling mix, and this is the only time that I'll do that. And I do that because these do not have a bottom tray, and I attempted last year to put them in a bottom tray to have them wick up that moisture, and it just didn't work out really well. So this year I'm pre-moistening the mix, and then I'm gonna put their dome on. And the honest truth is, these grow so fast and so vigorously that you can top water pretty soon after they come up. You don't have to worry about disturbing the seedling because it's good. It's gonna be okay. So I pre-moisten my mix, and then I shove it full as like this. I don't take these out individually and fill them, just leave it like this and fill it up. And then I take the seed and I push it down into the soil to about my first knuckle. That's about 1 inch, and that works pretty good for me. I do not scarify, I do not pre-soak, I do not nick my seeds. I've done pre-soaking in the past and it ends up rotting my seedlings. So I guess I overwater. So I'm not one who needs to do the pre-soaking, but if you feel like that you would benefit from that, you can go ahead and try it. Mine do just fine. Like I said, I have like a 95% germination rate using this method. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, I'm back with my root trainers are all filled. The seedling mix has been pre-moistened. When you're wetting your seedling mix, what you're looking for is that it kind of clumps together when you squeeze it, but not a lot of water comes out when you squeeze it. So it's like a very fine line between wet enough and too wet, so just be careful. Although I think with sweet peas you can err on the side of being too wet. I think it'll be just fine. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get my pre-made tags that I have, and I'm gonna write the date on the back. The reason you wanna keep track of your dates is because in the next year, if you're wondering if your sweet pea are taking too long to come up, maybe something's wrong, you can look back at your records and you can see how long they took to germinate. Okay, so today's January the 16th. I'm gonna pop that in my first cell. I like to go top to bottom, left to right, and I always do my seedlings this way. That way I never get confused about where a new variety is gonna start or stop. Now, like I said in a previous video, you don't want to combine different flowers and you don't want to combine different varieties usually, but because these seed trays are expensive, the dirt's expensive, I don't want to waste a single cell in here. So if I have extra cells, I'm gonna start a different variety. Same flower, just a different variety. So this one is called Molly Reelstone. And I'll show you what those seeds look like. Okay, so this is a sweet pea seed. They're fairly large. And if you've grown peas, you know, in your garden for vegetables, they're similarly shaped. So then I just take it, I'm gonna start over here, and your fingers are gonna get dirty, so if you wanna wear a glove, wear a glove. And I just press it down to my first knuckle, and then I just cover it with the remaining soil. So keep track of where you've been. Sometimes I'll go and I'll just place all the seeds on the top of the soil, and then I'll go in with my finger and I'll push them down into that soil. That way I don't lose track of where I am. Okay, now in this variety, I only had 10 seeds. So I am gonna start the new variety. This one is called King's Ransom. This one was really hard to get. So, and I think there's only 5 seeds in here. Yeah, there's only 5, so I'm gonna lay those out where I can see them. Okay, and you'll notice I'm not putting a date on every tag. I don't need to do that because I've got this first one right here that says when it was started. All right, so we're on to Naomi Nazareth. And if you're curious where I got these seeds, I got them from a combination of places. I got them from Sweet Pea Gardens. the Farmhouse Flower Farm and Johnny's. And I have in the past gotten them from Florette, but she doesn't sell them anymore. I don't know why. All right, and I have more of this one, so I'm just gonna keep going with Naomi Nazareth and finish out this tray. So you can see how, if you can direct seed these, how much better it would be. You would be spending a whole lot less on seed starting mix. I think I ended right here, okay. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna come in, and where I quit pushing them down in, I'm gonna go ahead and push those in up to my first knuckle. You can use vermiculite on this. Once you're done seeding these, you can place vermiculite in this hole, but I just prefer to save because vermiculite's kind of expensive. So I just use the soil on top to cover the seedling. And if you don't want to get your finger dirty and you don't want to wear gloves, you can always use a pencil, but it's sometimes hard to decide how far down you've planted it, whereas I can feel with my finger when I'm up to that first knuckle, so I know it's down an inch. Okay, so now I'm just gonna put the tray cover on here, the dome, and I'm gonna set those under the lights, and I'm gonna wait for those to germinate. Now it will require a bottom tray of some kind, because once you start watering these, you're gonna want something to catch the water that comes out underneath, but it doesn't need it right now. When I set these on the light system behind me, I'm gonna make sure the lights are right at the top of this dome. So that places the light system about 2 inches above the top of the soil, which is where you always wanna keep your light 2 inches above your top growth. All right, so here it is on the light system. As you can see, those lights are right at the top of that plastic dome, and I've got a tray underneath so that when I water it, when it starts to grow, it won't leak everywhere. Now these trays are dog crate trays that you can get off of Amazon. I just buy whatever's cheapest. I find that these work well for me because I don't necessarily need them to hold a bunch of water like I do these. I just need them to catch the water. So there they are. I space my sweet peas about 4 to 6 inches apart depending on how many seedlings I have. I always sow more seeds than I need. So if I happen to get a really high germination on something that I've overseeded, I will stuff them in a little bit closer. And if I don't, I'll set them out a little bit further apart. I have never felt like they needed more room than I've given them. So I've never felt like spacing has been an issue. They are a vining crop, so you do need to provide them with a trellis of some kind. I originally bought pea tunnels from, I believe it was Gardener's, and now I just use T-bars and Hortonova netting. You could just as easily use a cattle panel cut down to size. I do grow mine in a raised bed. I have attempted to grow them in the ground several times and they failed, so I just don't mess with it anymore because I love my sweet peas. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna baby them. They have a nice raised bed. I put plenty of fertilizer in there, and then I do feed them throughout the season until I can tell that they're kind of on their way out, and then I quit feeding them. You can get at least 300 stems a season off of about 24 plants, I would say, and I can fit 24 plants per raised bed, so I get an enormous amount of sweet peas. They do really well with boiling water treatment. They need a little bit more hydration than other plants, so I do harvest them into a hydrating solution, and then that is not something you can leave them in. However, you just want to leave them in the hydrating solution for about an hour, and then you want to move them to regular water. Sweet peas will give you seed at the end of the season. However, that varies between sweet pea varieties. Some sweet pea varieties will make a ton of seed and some won't make hardly any. And if you want seed, you have to quit collecting the flowers before the plant starts to die down. So for me, my plant will start yellowing at the bottom and it'll kind of work its way up and across when it's ready to quit, when it's ready to go into when it's ready to go dormant. So what I will do is when I start to notice the yellowing creeping up about a third of the way, I will quit harvesting off of those plants and I'll allow them to go to seed. As long as you have a couple feet between your varieties, they're not going to cross pollinate. At least that's what I have been told. I haven't had any experience with that myself, but I'm trusting others. So this year, because sweet pea seed is so hard to come by and because it's really hard to get those varieties that you really love, I am going to try to save seed off of mine this year. Last year I think I was a little too late. I let it go a little too far before I quit harvesting, and so I didn't get quite as much seed as I would have liked to. Sweet pea are heavy feeders, so to prepare your beds, you're going to want to mix in compost, bone meal, maybe some feather meal, and use some really good soil. And then as the season goes, you're going to want to feed them with some seaweed fertilizer or any other fertilizer that you would use out in your garden. So that is it for sweet pea for now. I will come back once these germinate and I'll let you know how long it took and what they look like. I do pinch my sweet pea, so I wait until they have about 2 to 3 sets of leaves and then I just pinch out that center growth. Now there is a Japanese way of growing sweet peas in which you keep your sweet pea to one single vine, so you don't allow it to branch out, and I'm told that in this way you can get a longer stem. So if you are interested in that, you're going to want to research that, but you do not pinch those varieties. You simply take off the side shoots that come from it. But yeah, I've never tried that method, and I probably never will because I don't really care that my sweet pea are short. I'll get back with you when those germinate, and I hope you'll try sweet pea. I know they're not like everyone's favorite. They're not very popular, but they're my favorite. They're amazing. They smell great. They're beautiful, and they're cheerful.